What a trip. What a trip. As you can tell, I just came from Midsommar, the latest psychological horror movie made from directed by the same guy who created last year's Hereditary. What's the name of the director? Ari Aster. Funny. We are almost at... It's convenient to have a movie about summer during the summer season. And from what I can tell from this movie is... What the frick I just saw? What the... Okay. This movie is not exactly as what the frick as Serenity. Because Serenity is filled of pretentious bullshit. But Serenity, it comes off as insane. Kind of like mind-boggling insane. Midsommar is kind of like another level. It has the what the hell I'm watching moments. But this one kind of has this problem that doesn't go, that it takes a while to get there, but man, that it's gonna kind of leave out some semblance of an impression depending on what what kind of movie you decide to watch. I can describe it. I've been hearing that this movie is having a little bit of a mixed bag on a reception. Some people will come up saying, hey, this movie's intelligent and I really like it. It freaked me out. I'd agree with that. Other people are saying, oh, this is pretentious bullshit. It has lots of problems that doesn't go anywhere. I agree. How can a movie come out with me watching other reviews and agreeing and disagreeing at the same time? And if you're asking what is my personal opinion, I will say that I don't hate it. I don't came out hating Midsommar, but the sheer things that this thing happens, I'm gonna give it credit and discredit where it's due. So, if you can hear me talking a lot about this movie, whew, man, I gotta warn you, at least this. I gotta warn you that this is a hard R movie, that it is really, really hard R. So let's begin right now by starting to say that, at least to this movie's benefit, that it's not every single time that you're gonna see these kind of horror movies once in a while, no matter if it's gonna be well received or not. Because most of the horror movie norms usually it comes off at there's some stupid teenager, they do something to party, and then a cursed item or a killer comes up. Oh no, we gotta do something. Boo, boo, here's a jump scare. Boo, boo, here it is. They're dead. Bam. The atmospheric kind of movie, kind of horror movies, is you're gonna get usually once in a while. This one, it is one of those once in a while. And I agree with one thing about that, saying that this movie is not as good as Hereditary. Because in a way, this movie is not exactly well written. And to start out, I gotta say what the plot is about. Well, the plot is that it starts out with our main character named Danny. She's played by Florence Pugh. It started out with her being worried that her sister, who she claims that is bipolar, is gonna do something drastic because she sent her kind of like a very scary email where she says that she's gonna go along with her parents to something good, and she's worried. She even called her boyfriend, who this boyfriend named Christian, played by Jack Raynor. He is kind of like a dick, let's say, because this guy is kind of trying to find ways to break up with his girlfriend Danny. But then the horror happens to Danny when she gets the call that, well, her sister commits suicide, and she took her parents with her by letting out carbon dioxide from the cars, and while the parents leave, they make them breathe that, and you even see her with the with the tube going directly to her mouth and all this stuff. And then 6 months later, because it becomes summer, she's still traumatized. But she kinda gets some kind of Stockholm syndrome with the boyfriend, and it's clearly shown that she doesn't want him. She doesn't want him out. She doesn't want him, out from her 5 feet away. And well, she realizes that the guy he's going with his friends to Sweden. Because one of the guys he's writing a thesis about the Midsommar festivals, which apparently is kind of like a celebration for the harvest. In natural way, let's say. And so she invites herself into it. They go to Sweden, and of course, and one of the friends is he knows the place, he knows everything. He just invite them there. They get high on weed. She's having traumatic experience because most of the things she kind of reminds her of her, her trauma that she lost her family. And they go right in the deep forest, where they apparently go to the whitest village you could ever see. And I don't mean it racially, just in case. I just mean white because everyone is dressed up in white. The people in the community, they're kind of, it's kind of like it's kind of like you go to the village of M. Night Shyamalan, but they all dress up in white. And they're celebrating their Midsommar festival that takes place for nine days. And the more they go there, they kind of realize that these people, they are technically not doing things that are, well, technically right. They begin to act too asymmetrical, let's say, too on the spot, too strict on doing some things, and let's say that things get creepier from that moment. First off, I gotta also say that this is probably gonna be one of those movies that is a little bit tiresome to watch, because the movie is extremely long. I do remember that not counting the trailers, the movie started out at 7:20 p.m. and then I just got out of the movie theater like 9:40 p.m. So it's a 3-hour sit, and it's a very, very, very slow build-up, let me tell you. It's really slow, just like Hereditary, I'll say. And also a little bit like The Witch, but unlike these two movies. The problem a little bit with Hereditary is that most of the interesting stuff kind of happened almost at last, and most of the stuff that you see, well, it does its job on keeping you paying attention, but it's a little bit kind of far in between, let's say. Although it takes kind of like the first 20 minutes to finally actually happen. The build-up is kind of, I think you don't get to the village after the 15-minute long pass, because you have to deal with the Danny's character, with Danny trying to cope up with the death of her family because of a stupid sister yeah, I usually call stupid people who commit suicide. But you also notice that she has this Stockholm syndrome with her boyfriend, who the boyfriend is kind of not into it, but at the same time he kind of forces himself into a relationship. And by the way, keep in mind that the phrase Stockholm syndrome is not mentioned. Well, at least it's mentioned once, but it is technically the theme of this movie. And yeah, they go to this camp just to get high, but later when they meet the villagers, you kind of you kind of see on the get-go that it really feels kind of cultish. Cultish. Most notably the second day when everyone is sitting there, everyone is dressed as with white, dressed in white. The only one who are not dressed in white are the people who are not from the village, which are camp. It is Danny, her boyfriend Christian, the Afro-American guy who is the one who is doing the thesis. He's played by what was the name of the guy? William Jackson Harper. The lack for a better word, the idiotic comic relief played by Will Poulter, and a British couple, let's say. They're a British couple that they kind of like each other. Right? And the first sign that something is really going wrong, it comes out when, during the second day, a couple just comes out from probably, I think it was, they kind of like dressing kind of like a blue get pajama, let's say, and they follow strictly that whenever they get sit, then everyone pick up their plates to eat to eat, and then after the lunch, they climb to this big mountain, and these couple, they slices their palms just to put some blood into a slab, let's say, and they jump out of the cliff to their death. This is gonna be the first sign for you guys that something is really wrong with the cult, because they just jump out of it, and I gotta warn you, these guys, that the gore is immense. I'll tell you, because the first one, who is the woman, when she jumps out, she just has her face plant on the rock, and then it cuts to her head. It just open. It's like someone smashed a watermelon and you just leave the hole in their face. It's nasty. And it's also getting nasty when the dude just falls off the cliff, and he doesn't face plant into the rock. He just lands on his legs, and he breaks his legs, and he's kind of like struggling to live. But don't worry, because the watchers, they brought a giant wooden mallet to smack his head like a melon, and it's nasty. You're seeing it, and of course that everyone gets freaked out. Not as freaked out as the British, because the British guys, they're just like, what the freak? What the hell? And the head priestess, I think he's the head priestess, she's like, no, don't worry. This is kind of like the part of life. This is our ritual for the plants, to the harvest and all this stuff. Something that I kind of struggle to understand. Well, to be fair, the reason I kind of struggled to understand the movie, there were actually two reasons. And it's mostly personal. The first one is that I was sitting right on front of the movie theater because all of the seats were taken. And the second reason is that I was sitting next to two assholes who, during the whole movie, they didn't stop chattering between each other. They just chat during the middle of the movie. That it was technically irrelevant. And by the way, they weren't kids; they were teenagers. Apparently, stupidity or ignorance is not limited to an age. It was so annoying that I just had to get up and tell to the manager that these guys were are chatting during the whole movie. So please, guys, watch the film. Don't chat. Another credit that I have to give to this movie is that the cinematography is excellent. It's beautiful. How the compositions are. You can tell that the director knows where to point the camera to come up with kind of like a very artsy style kind of movie. Of course, there's some shots that it does come out kind of a little bit weird, and some of the choices of visuals. I mean, there was a moment in which they get high. That Danny the Danny character, she eats shrooms, and she begins to hallucinate that there's grass growing on her hands and all this stuff. And there are some composite shots that they seem kind of out of place. There is a little bit also on the design level that the white clothing of the people is real. It looks great. They look really great. Almost also the shots of the village and everything, they're not exactly dirty. It's all green pasture, blue skies. Yeah, it's so much that it looks really old, ancient, let's say, for people living in the green pastures. How's the best way I can describe it? It's kind of like what you kind of imagine the green field. So with that's and I kind of like that. I gotta admit. Another thing that I like is that it kind of like in the inside of the houses, or sometimes they show us on the outside of the houses. There are these drawings that they look. The best way I can describe it is that they look like these fairy tale character designs that they don't have too much three-dimensionality. They have kind of like this 2D, not exactly childish, but they're too blocky, 2D. They don't have too much depth in it. They kind of look like those ancient fairy tale books, this character designs, and they're interesting. And some of them, of course, they look unsettling, I'll say. But of course, that some of the choices that they kind of go throughout the movie, you kind of raise your eyebrows. Like, for example, remember that I told you that that the main character, Danny, she's going through a traumatic experience where her family gets killed. One gets killed and kill herself, let's say. Remember that? Unfortunately, this is probably just used as some kind of like a red herring / MacGuffin, because after that, they don't technically address this thing ever. After kind of like the 30-minute mark, we only get this weird scene in which Danny kind of begins to hallucinate, and it kind of comes out like a kind of funny moment in which she kind of blows kind of like the black smoke, like, and the black smoke kind of comes out, like the fumes of the car. That was unintentionally kind of funny, but after that they never address it, only to show that the character is traumatized. She doesn't want to stay alone. It's mostly, if I had to defend it a little bit, maybe this is kind of used to use it kind of like a crutch to the character, to show that this character doesn't want to stay alone. She does feel repressed out of it. especially for a boyfriend who he doesn't feel like a boyfriend kind of like doesn't have himself feel like he has a purpose. Let's say he doesn't know what he wants to do in his life. He's always struggling to find out what the thesis is gonna be or what it's gonna be about. He doesn't have a title for his thesis. He doesn't know the subject of the thesis. He is also well. He feels like he doesn't like it. He doesn't want to be with her girlfriend. He just feels like kind of like an obligation just to make her feel better from the whole trauma. He's not into it. And then later, for some reason, even after even after the double suicide, he just goes to his friend and he's like, "Hey, I want to do. I think I'm gonna do my thesis paper about the Midsommar. Dude. That's my thesis. Yeah, we can make it like a duel. Dude, what the freak? Really? Really? That's how douchey this guy is. Speaking of moments that don't go anywhere, there are a few moments that I think they just kind of show it just to make things a little bit creepier, but they don't technically contribute anything to the movie. Two of the things that comes into my mind. First of all, the first one is a little bit of a nitpick, in which where everyone sleeps is kind of like in a barn, in which they have beds there, but it kind of also shows that that in the room there's a baby that sleeps there, and this baby all the time is crying. It even cries at nighttime, and it keeps on, and the funny thing is that nobody is bothered by it. No, dude, if I was in that room, I wouldn't stand to sleep when there's a baby crying. Apparently, the whole night, this baby doesn't shut up. So, please make an experiment, because I want to know how long a baby can cry until it finally gets tired. Because I doubt that a baby can spend like 6 hours crying. So help me out on this one. And the other second thing that kind of almost doesn't go nowhere is that they kind of established, and it only kind of like 2 or 3 shots probably, that one of the important people that is there is technically, I think it is kind of like an inbred, that a very deformed guy or girl or whatever it is, to technically apparently write paints and write off kind of like this book that it has runes, some painting and all this stuff, in which he keeps on deciphering, and they have blank pages and all this stuff. I kind of I got lost about the narrative of the film, because it feels like that it wants to create a lore, but it doesn't feel too coherent. This inbred doesn't it doesn't contribute too much into the movie. It's just kind of there for shock value. And that book also, it kind of gave out it in itself kind of like a significance when what was the name, the William Jackson Harper character. He is very interested, to the point that, hey, I know that it's for my thesis, but can I take a picture? No, you can't take a picture. And he does that overnight, and lo and behold, something happens to him, which I'll get to later, because I forgot to mention about the cult, what these cultish guys do. But let's say that the book later disappears. The book disappears, and they kind of go like, hey, where's the book? I don't know. that book never returns. And no one talks about it. Simply, they kind of forgot that there's the book. But it feels like this movie wanted to create too many elements to create some kind of suspense and importance, but they never go through it. They just felt like they had an idea, but they wanted to add up last minute ideas just to feel like it is too deep without, you know, putting the pieces together on how it can affect everything. In my case, I think that it is that the most important basis of this movie is mostly the bad relationship of the characters of Danny and Christian, who is this couple who they technically don't like each other, but they struggle to break up because one has Stockholm syndrome and the other one is not interested in it. And yeah, the other characters are there, and basically the cult secretly, yeah, they killed him. They killed him. Most of the deaths of they kind of go a little bit off screen. I mean, the British guys are the first ones to go, and they are. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you're thinking that after watching these two people sacrificing themselves, it's enough to say, "Fuck this, I'm done." It's not easy to escape. It's not easy to escape. That's the least I could tell you about it, because well, they get killed and it is obvious what they do with their body, especially when it comes with a scene in which they create meat pie, and the movie kind of really begins to emphasize on the meat pie, and in my head it was like, okay, when do we're gonna see something that will tell us that yeah, this meat is not exactly cow, and lo and behold, it shows, but not by a finger. It kind of goes with a pubic, kind of like the one finds out some kind of pubic hair. Oh, and the comic relief, he gets killed also off screen, but we know probably how he was killed, because this asshole had the decency to pee on a tree that they find sacred, and then he just during the lunch scene, he just kind of sees that the guy who yelled at him for doing that, he just looks at him like, okay. Remember that I told you about the scene of the guy who who secretly goes to take a picture of the book? Well, that's probably the only kill you're gonna see on screen, at least until you get finally a few more. But the way he gets killed, let's say that it has to do with the inbred, taking some classes from Leatherface. That removing the skin of their victim and wearing it as a mask. Maybe that's the reason why they used this guy. And now I'm gonna talk to you about that. After so much build up, so much things that we just got out of our mind, let me tell you that the last 25 minutes of this movie, or no, a little bit longer, kind of last 30 minutes of this film, this is when things get crazier. Really crazy. And oh man, this was I don't know if I can't say if this whole wait was worth it, but I'm gonna let you guys be the judge. You hate it. I know. You hate it. I understand. I understand, but I have to talk to you about it. So we have the remaining party. Danny and Christian. They there's the cult. Now we know that they are shady in one point or another. So they go along with the festivities and they go one of the main events, in which is technically kind of like a dance party for women. So in which they dance until they collapse, and the last one remaining kind of becomes like the queen of the flowers and all this stuff, kind of like the main priest, let's say. And of course that because of, you know, these kind of movies, our main character Danny is the one that wins. Oh yeah, by the way, these women are kind of totally high. They drink this water filled with her that they make them high. As for Christian, let's say that he's interrogated about the whereabouts of the book, but he wasn't being interrogated by the book. Because during the whole movie, you also notice that there is this red-headed girl that she got the hots on him. And I don't know if it's subtle or not, but he thinks that he wants that. I do remember that they did talk about seeing other women when they go before they go to Sweden. It's only that Danny herself, she invited herself and all this stuff. Well, when they found, so it was during that the moment in which Christian's like, really something fishy's going on here. Oh, you think? You're gonna call this as fishy just after you decided to create a thesis, right? After two guys, a couple just jump into their death, and the cult kind of act like this is the greatest thing in their lives. And well, what happens is that, yeah, Danny becomes the kind of like the queen. They go to eat their dishes, and even Christian's like, hey dude, what the frick is going on? And the guy next to him is like, hey. And then it shows that, and then Christian kind of gets stone high. So apparently this cult has the power to create these kind of hallucinogenic powders. That I know that criminal minds kind of do that. So yeah, think that at that moment also the movie kind of decides to become a little bit artsy, where some of the shot kind of becomes a little bit subtly wavy, kind of slow. They decide to use some CGI effect for plants, in which Danny begins to see plants slowly and subtly moving. Even the crown of flowers that she is wearing kind of begins to have some life in it. And after that, after lunch, Danny goes to. I think they're gonna do some part of the ritual where about planting rice with meat, but then it gets more insane, and that was the most insane part. And boy, oh boy, if you thought that seeing people having their heads open is graphic enough, wait until you get to that part, because that part is both a mixture of creepy, but not in a terrifying way, but it's kind of laughable. I just kind of laugh. Actually, the audience laughed. It was probably the funniest thing to see in this movie, that even the guys though was chattering didn't bother me. So what happened is that Christian, now high because of the powder, they just lead him to this barn, and what's inside the barn is a bed of flowers, and then in that bed of flowers, there we see the redhead, really gorgeously looking, but also naked. She is naked. Christian, they dress him up in kind of like also in a white robe. But that's not all. The gorgeous redhead and the bed of flowers is surrounded by other women, naked, all of distinct ages. No underage, just in case. You see middle-aged woman, old woman, young woman. Kind of like 8 or 10 of them naked. And they're just like, It's kind of like the most... It's kind of like the most perverted sexual fantasy you could ever imagine. And here, and it's not exactly what there's gonna be is an orgy. No. The guy just takes off his robe, and then he goes along to have sex with the red hair girl. And they do it, and it's technically kind of like a soft porno. They're having sex, while the other woman, they just surround him, and they're just like, yeah. Yeah, that goes, and it keeps up for a while. It gets a little bit funnier when one of the old women, she just gets behind him, and he just pushes the guy's butt, and he's like, come on, keep doing it. He just pushes his butt. That's kind of funny, I'll say. Man, I can't say, but that was kind of hilarious. The point is that the movie tries to say that why this movie was doing it, why they're doing it is because since this is kind of like a secluded village, this is their way to not create incest inbreds. So they needed a foreigner to well give a woman a baby. Man, I don't know if my hormones were kind of confused or maybe they were laughing, but in a perverted way, it's kind of hot. And what does this lead to? Well, let's say that Danny just takes a look at the keyhole, and she sees what her husband is doing. She gets so horrified that she goes into the bedroom barnyard with the other woman, and she goes technically crying. And she goes crying while the other woman kind of follows her like, ah, ah, ah. It's unsettling. That's the least thing I can say. That is unsettling. Although at this point, I also want to comment in saying that I think that was Florence Pugh's biggest, most constant thing that she do on the whole movie. During the whole movie, she's always crying. She's always like, to the point that you just want to slap her and say, woman, has a grip on yourself. Well, that movie kind of cemented all when she just kind of goes like, and the other follows suit like, what can I say? Okay, I continue on. So yeah, the Christian kind of wakes up from his probably his best moment of his life, and when he gets out, he realizes what he has done. He finds out the cult is acting creepy. He's naked in the barn, and he just tries to hide. And he hides in the barn, and he sees one of the British be kind of being the skin of one of the British being hanging out with flowers on the head and all this stuff. And of course, the cult knocks him with powder and all this stuff. So he wakes up and finds out that he's a vegetable. He can't move. He's just like, he can't talk. He can't move or anything. And as Danny, since she's the queen, they dress her up in probably the most over-exaggerated flower toga you could ever imagine. She's all flowers and are surrounding her. And then it is revealed that the cult, they invited the, the cult kind of sends out people to find all over the world a few foreigners for sacrifices for their Midsommar celebration. And for this to happen, they need the 9 sacrifices. So let's keep a tally of how many people were sacrificed. There was the couple that jump out. The couple that they jump out. The British couple. What was it? The thesis guy. The guy from the Duchy guy. So they have a few more left that they want to. So first of all, they take a lottery from the people who decide who they're gonna become the sacrifice. They decide to pick 2 of them. So they got 8. So who's the final sacrifice? The final sacrifice is between another guy who was gonna be sacrificed, who was on a lottery, and of course Christian. But this choice was to be done by Danny. Danny has the choice to choose either one of the guys from the cult or Christian. And of course, you know the obvious thing that after she sees him having sex with another woman, it's obvious that she decides, you're gonna die. And then suddenly, the movie turns into The Wicker Man. The Nicolas Cage Wicker Man. And what I mean by that is because almost in the scene where they enter the village, they had a bear on a cage. There was even a drawing of a woman with a bear. I don't know if this is a symbolism, but I don't think that I want to tell you about it. But they put out they killed this bear, they took out his organs, they even teach children how to take out the organs of the bear, and they put it on the Christian guy who is paralyzed. So yeah, they dressed him up with the carcass of a dead bear, and the first thing that came out into my mind is The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage, and the infamous scene in which Nicolas Cage is dressed up with like a bear. The only thing that this movie was missing is him punching someone with that bear suit. And yeah, they dress him up because they want him to symbolize that he's kind of like the beast. So they put him in this forbidden place that kind of looked like an Illuminati pyramid, a barnyard in the shape of a pyramid. That it's technically a silo where they put the carcass of their sacrifices, as well that they put the living sacrifices there, including the 2 guys and Christian, now dressed up like a bear. And they burn it, just like the Wicker Man. And by the way, Wicker Man is actually a term, and it did exist. It technically was this contraptions where for sacrifices or executions, they just it's kind of like a big doll or a big head that they put person inside, and they burn it. And yet they burn. While the people are burning, the cult is like it's both unsettling and funny at the same time. And as for Danny, seeing her boyfriend but just silently burning, she at first goes like, and then she cracks a smile, like, I'm part of the family, I'm free. And end. That was some movie, let me tell you. This is one of those reviews that I know that it took so long to talk about it, but I had to. So, boy, that. It's not good. It's not a narrative. It's not narrative, but I'm not repenting to see it. Because it's weird. This is technically kind of like in the same level of the movie Mother. The Mother movie that is technically pretentious, but I'll give that Mother at least has some focus on its elements. It kept it a little bit simplistic on its pretentiousness, but this one, it wanted to do so much, but it came out incoherent. But at the same time, kind of funny. But I do get it. I do get it. The movie wanted to make an allegory to Stockholm syndrome. That's from what I get. So anyway, I've been talked long enough about Midsommar. I kind of recommend you at least to watch it at least once, but again, I warn you that it's very graphic in both violence and sexuality. So anyway, I have my tea here. So, see you in my next movie.